I
Oh, there you
think
go,
that
Kathleen.
you should just introduce yourselves, and Ellen can go first, and then Paul, and then Rocky, if that's okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ellen Hopkins. What I have to, I hate talking about myself. Anyway, I'm the author of 14 young adult novels in verse, 4 novels for adults, and 1 published and 1 to publish in September, middle grade novels in verse, all of which are contemporary, issue-driven stories that I hope are going to help young readers from now until eternity. There, that's it.
Yes, and they will, Ellen, for sure. And that is how I will introduce myself, a sometime friend of Ellen Hopkins, when she's not too embarrassed to say that she knows me. Yeah, I've just been writing young adult and middle grade books, and I just love coming to the Teen Book Festival. The nicest people in the world, except for Craig from the TBF committee. He's not a good guy. Try to stay away from him. But yeah, this is, I'm just so psyched to be with you all.
And I am Rocky Callen. This is my first time here at the Book Fest, and I'm just so grateful and excited to be here. I think I'm the resident baby author because I have my 1 book that debuted last year in April. And it is an issue-driven contemporary read. Thank you, Ellen, for that. And it deals with, you know, very intimate and raw issues that I struggled to write in the beginning, but that I knew were necessary. And so I know that all the authors on this panel really have written books that I think make young people feel seen in so many different experiences. So I'm very grateful and honored to be here on this panel.
Nice, Rocky.
Kathleen, you're on mute.
Kathleen?
It is not working. It doesn't like me. I don't know why. So why write realistic fiction instead of another genre? Why do you choose that?
Well, I do it for the money. I mean, that's there's a lot of money in realistic fiction. You know, particularly if you're writing about folks who you know, are having a hard time. That, you know, you can make a lot of money doing that. Why? Because I can't write fantasy. I'm not smart enough. I don't know. It's just like your life leaks into your stories, right? We're like, you know, we live these lives, we have these plans, but nothing goes that way. And the formative relationships in your life, you know, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, they do these things that kind of blow you away or terrify you, and you can't stop thinking about that, and you write it down because you can slow it down when you write it down, and you can try to figure out what it means. And then before you know it, you've used all the time you had to write. So what you're stuck with is realistic fiction.
I think for me, it's because, and again, I just saying, I wouldn't write science fiction because I don't know robots, you know, it's not my thing. But what I do know is people. I've lived on this planet quite a number of years now, and it's the human experience that interests me. It's not the robot experience that interests me as a writer anyway. So I love getting inside the characters' heads. I love presenting their stories, and they write through me. So it's not always me writing them. It's a lot of times it's them writing through me. But I love the idea of exploring humanity and what makes us people and what makes us humans and what makes us possible, you know, to be on this planet. And I think it's really important that we address things, good and bad, that are part of the human experience, especially for young people, because their perspective is about that wide, right? Mine's about that wide. So I can bring that much perspective to a space about that big and hopefully help them make better choices, help them have understanding of things that might seem hard to understand. And I think I do that very successfully through my books. So why fix what ain't broken, I guess.
I really tripped into writing realistic fiction. You know, I always anticipated writing fantasy, and that's what I did for a long time. And then I had posted a flash fiction piece on World Suicide Prevention Day, and someone commented, "Oh, is this a book?" And I had a very visceral reaction of, "No, it's not." And it was because I knew that the writing of it would break my heart, and I didn't know if I could handle that at that point. But within a year of that, I realized like the urgency to write that book, which is A Breath Too Late, came full force, and I could not ignore it. And then since then, contemporary realistic fiction has really just had its hold on me, because I feel like the intimacy and the rawness that was required for writing Breath now has opened my eyes to all of our lived experiences, all of my family's lived experiences, all of my friends' lived experiences, and the acknowledgement that we all deserve to feel seen, and in our wholeness and our messiness, in the roller coaster that is life. And Ellen, like you were saying, to offer a lot of perspective in you know, the 300 pages or 500 pages, whatever that page count is something that is very humbling, and it's a tremendous honor to be able to do that. And for me as well, you know, I think that the issues that I grapple with in Breath are around depression and suicide, domestic violence. These are all heavy issues, but I wanted to offer hope alongside that. And I really want it to be known for anyone, especially young people, is that joy and pain can coexist. And to acknowledge that early on, I think that we'll all have so much more compassion for ourselves. And that is what I want to be able to show with that contemporary realistic fiction, is that our lives as they are worthy of being seen and celebrated.
I actually thought I was going to write horror at one time, because like I was a big Stephen King fan, you know, I mean, I still am, but I was going to write horror, and then I didn't realize that vampires had to sparkle. I'm like, no.
Wow, Rocky, that was, wow. Joy and pain can coexist. Thank you for telling us that. That's it. That's the whole game right there.
I just met, so I've known Paul for a while, and we connected like immediately when we met at Rochester, actually. And yesterday, Rocky and I had a Zoom meeting ahead of this, because I wanted to get to know her. And she's like this just amazing person, just a great light. So I'm so happy to have gotten to know you. It's great.
Oh,
and you're right next to Paul, like two of my favorite people in the world now. So it's like,
Ellen, oh my God, I love you. Wow.
These people are amazing. Can I stay here all day?
Ellen won't let you say nice things about her for too long. That's the problem. You try to talk about her books, and she'll be like, anyway, let's change the subject. You know?
During my Zoom call with Ellen yesterday, because she was really my, the person that before, because I was really into fantasy, I really didn't read contemporary realistic fiction. And I remember seeing Crank for the first time, and just being so like yanked into just like the first pages. And, you know, we were talking about how, since, you know, I'll talk about Ellen's books. We were talking yesterday about, you know, writing a novel in verse, especially in that time frame in the young adult market. You know, it's really pioneering what Ellen was able to put out there. But to write something and then also make it accessible is so powerful, is something so important. And I think that the more we can do that is beautiful and is necessary. And so when Ellen's like, hey, you want to get to know each other before, I had like butterflies. He's like, yes, please.
I had to force myself to go say hi to Ellen the first time I met her because I was so in awe. No, really, I totally know what you're talking about. Because Crank for me, from the cover, it was, just seeing it from the cover was like, I just knew that this was going to be a story that would change my life and that I would recognize. You know, and that's what Ellen does for people. She just, you know, she's not afraid to talk about the things that so many of us find ourselves, you know, trapped in. And then, but Ellen, she plays it so real, but she also gives you so much hope. And that's what you come away with. It's just coming. That's what I come away with when I read Ellen, is just hope, you know, that you really can. It's and Patty McCormick too, you know, she really does that. She just like, she dives right in, and she doesn't really think about if she's going to get hurt, you know, because some of these stories are so, to write them, Ellen, I can't even imagine. You lived so much of what you write, and then like you're so generous to be able to, you know, bring it to
But
us.
you know, it's important to be able to take those experiences and do something with them that matters, you know, instead of just resenting them for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? And I talk about sometimes there are things that are in some of my books, like I wrote out, there's a scene in one of them where the boyfriend is killed in a car accident, and I lost the first love of my life at 16 in a drunk driving accident. You know, I wasn't in the car obviously with him, but and I carried that with me for, seriously, I don't know, 40 years or something, you know, and then I got to write it out in a book eventually. And it's like, it's gone now. We compartmentalize these things that happen in our lives, you know, these bad things. And I don't know, I don't like to even call them bad because they're all learning experiences, even though they hurt at the time, you know, you grieve through them or whatever, but to be able to give them, I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you my bad experience and you see what you do then. No, I think, but it's important as writers that we can, again, life isn't all joy, you know, it's pain too. And they do exist side by side. And I think it's important to illustrate that.
One question I want to ask, Ellen, is you write in verse, and to me, that is the most amazing thing. It goes with poetry, it goes with rap, it goes in, and you did this 20 years ago. So how did you decide to use that style of writing?
It's, I mean, I've been writing poetry forever, you know, like I actually write lyric poetry and formal poetry and all that. I've worked with a poetry group for a long time. And I started Crank in prose, and the voice was all wrong. Voice was like my voice and not her voice. So I put the book away and I did a workshop with Sonia Sones, who, as she at the time was really the only, as far as I can remember, contemporary YA person working in verse. And her first novel, Stop Pretending, had just come out. And I did a workshop with her, and I'm like, you know what? She's taken a personal experience, which is about her sister's schizophrenia, and she's using verse to tell the story, and how powerful so few words telling that story were. And so I'm like, if she can do it, I can do it. Well, I'm going to do it better. You know, that was my goal, to do it better. So, you know, which is why I spent a lot of time kind of with the highly stylized verse on the page, you know, a lot of concrete poetry and, you know, visual interest, which is also, so verse does that for reluctant and non-readers. It reads like music, it reads like rap, it reads like, it's story, but it's so condensed that they don't get overwhelmed by too many words on the page, right? And Rocky and I were talking about white space and the power of white space to be able to stop after something and breathe, you know, like when you have real powerful place and then you can just step back and breathe. So it's amazing, really. And I've been revising this for 2 years anyway, and my third editor on this book, which is why it's been freaking 2 years because every editor on this book, 3 different editors, all different vision, right? So vision. So finally I just got back to, okay, what's my vision for the book? So moving it from prose into verse, and to take like paragraphs, you know, I'm like, this is like on a screen, paragraphs of words and condense them into like 3 stanzas. That it's like, it's really powerful to be able to take that and put it in that instead of all that. It's crazy.
You and Jackie Woodson, I think, are just able to tell this really involved, intricate story in just like you say, Ellen, this much page, and it's like that's how wide the margins are, right?
Right.
Like it's phenomenal. You really, it just hits you. It's so much easier to remember the scene, to remember what people say.
It's easier to read, but it's not easier to write. I can tell you.
Sure, there's no way I could do it. I mean, it's really interesting because Amy, our friend Amy King, she sent me a bit of a poem that she's working on. I won't, you know, it's her thing. I just want to say that, you know, Amy's, her writing is so beautiful, her prose. It's so interesting to see that her personality is still in the poetry that she's writing, but it's just to see, it's like Amy on the greatest drug ever, you know. It's just like she's condensed into this. It's beautiful. It's really interesting to see her writing in poetry.
She has a tremendous potency no matter how she shows up. Amy, she'll, because I went to VSCFA for my MFA, and she's faculty there. And so she, you know, she would do readings, and that's just an experience, you know, to be able to experience her, even reading prose, but poetry, prose, it's incredible. And I think that, you know, for all of the authors here, I think that the ability to bring all of that perspective into a small space is its own potency. You know, it's really trying to distill so much within what a reader can read in a few hours. And so it's as a person starting her writing, her author career, I just look to both you, Paul, and Ellen for just what an incredible journey you all have been able to do for book after book, to be able to produce that. And so it's incredible.
Rocky, don't do what I do. You're so incredibly kind. Just do what Ellen does. She's got it down. I'm still trying to figure it out.
So I have another question. How do you inject meaning into mundane occurrences?
You start, Rocky.
I find them, so I have a friend actually audio messaged me a few days ago, and she's like, Rocky, I feel like, when I say this with all due respect, you're the kind of author that really likes to hurt people. and so like the mundane is actually, it is hard for me to sit with the mundane, because I generally go from like terrible moment to terrible moment. But I find that writing the mundane from solidly in someone's perspective, when you're really deeply rooted there, is that no matter who you are, you know, the mundane has meaning. You know, how your bed is made or not made has meaning to you, and is an extension of character and identity. How you walk has that. How you speak has that. And to be an observer and see how those things translate into people and their identity is actually, I went to a lecture about body language and how it shows power or how it shows identity. And just seeing those nuances is really incredible, like opening your eyes to that. And like I have found, especially this year, you know, during the pandemic, you know, so much of us were, you know, under lockdown and sort of stuck in our houses. And I am a person that either is very hard, like I live in the past or I live in the future, like depression, anxiety coexist very well. But being present is more difficult for me. And so this year has really forced me to be present and to really acknowledge moment to moment that this moment is actually what matters. And I think that by giving a lot of intentionality to the mundane, we can show that too, because, you know, it's from the present that we can build our life. And so to show how important that is. And I think that I'm still learning that, but I think that it is so, so important.
But it's those moments, and again, this year really drove home how important those moments are, because, you know, for me, I was stuck here with a bunch of kids, you know, and to be able to take like cooking and share that with them, or baking or something like that, you know. And I did the whole sourdough thing, by the way. My neighbors, I told Rocky, my neighbors, they all got sourdough. They all gained a lot of weight because I didn't want to. So here, kids, run this next door, will you please? Because sourdough takes a lot of effort. It doesn't shut up. It just like it's at you all the time. But no, it is those things that matter, because that's where relationships are built, in the mundane, right? It's not, you know, it's when you have a new relationship, is not about that, right? It's about, you know, like if you're in that space, it's about like falling in love and having that kiss and having that, you know, and all those things that go with that early part of that relationship. What matters is what lasts, you know, what happens after you get out of bed, or after you stop kissing, or whatever, you know. What are you guys watching on TV together? Do you guys share the same food, or do you not? All those little things are what build people. And so that is our job as authors, is to build those small moments are what actually creates the bigger moments later, because all those little things feed into who those characters are, just like all those little things feed into who we are.
I'm thinking of this time I was working on an ambulance, and we got a call for it came over as a sick. You know, that could be anything, right? And as we got closer, it was revised to EDP, which we don't use that term anymore, but back then it meant emotionally disturbed person. So basically all of us, right, who is not emotionally disturbed. But this poor guy, we show up, and he's in Central Park, and he's sitting on a bench, and he's weeping, you know, very quietly, not just sitting by himself. And I was asking him, trying to get his medical history and all that, and he was actually off his medication. So I said, "What's going on? You know, do you are you feeling like you want to hurt yourself?" He said, no, you know, this is part of the protocol, right? You want to check if someone's feeling suicidal. I said, do you want to hurt anybody else? He said, no, I'm so in love with everything. And I was looking around, right? Because he was looking around. I was trying to see what he was looking at. And it was just a park. It wasn't even a particularly nice day. And he looked at me and he said, this is just so ridiculous that we're even here, you know? So it like every once in a while you get super lucky, right? You click with somebody like that, your paths cross. And for whatever reason, someone's in a heightened state. You know, this person was not young. This was not a first, I don't think, you know. Just, he was in a place at a certain time, where he just had an appreciation of the mundane. So I think that I just have to keep reminding myself that the mundane is the gift, right? That's the real gift. I mean, just to try to find the magic in the everyday, because we give up on that. We give up on that. We watch the news and we see all this depressing stuff going on, and we see people judging each other, and we see people trying to create division. We see all this hatred, right? And it's just so much work that we got to remember to give ourselves the time to just look into the mundane and look into the magic that is really like right now, right? Like this is magic, right? We're all together. Like what is this? I'm seeing 16 screens here, right? All in different places. This is. I've been doing this like all the time, but this is crazy that I get to spend time with you all. So yeah, magic and mundane. It's kind of the same thing.
I think the magic and mundane, and like everyone we're all saying, is that's what life's all about. And I think we have to be constantly reminded of it. And Ellen, you were talking about, like first love and the beginning stages. And then when you've, been married for 20 years, it's different, but there's still that beauty in the, rolling over and seeing the person that you've chosen. And sitting at the park and just being in love with what you're witnessing. I think those are powerful gifts, Paul, like you're saying. And I think to learn that as a young person is going to be transformative, because I think too often we stumble into that acknowledgement or in that truth later on in life. And so like gripping hold of it early is going to be just allow you to live that much fuller and brighter a life.
Well, and the kids that live, I mean, because some kids don't live mundane lifestyles, right? For whatever reason, it's just their life experience doesn't allow that. But there are a lot of kids that do. And for them to understand that it's okay to live like that it's, that is just as valuable as the other experience and maybe more, and again, that's about bringing perspective into that space and, enjoy those moments where you're, playing with your dog or, your little sister's sitting on your lap and you're reading her a book or whatever, those things are, because those are all vital to who we are as people,
I'm really not doing well with this unmuting. There's a unmute button and then there's a little red, so all right. I don't know what's going on. So how do you draw on personal experiences for inspiration without turning the story into an autobiography?
I mean, for me, it's like all my middle grade books very, very specifically are inspired by these young people that are in my house now that we've been raising for a while. But it's not their stories I'm writing, it's the kind of person they are. So with Closer to Nowhere, Cal is very much one of the kids we were raising, but nothing about his life experience is the same, other than he's been hurt as a kid, traumatized at a young age, and so he reacts in a certain way. So the inspiration is, the reaction is like right back there. So I can see how the reaction is, but I create the story elsewhere, just using the emotions that, the emotions that are inside this child. The idea that you can have a behavioral problem and still want to have friends and still want to be loved and still have a big giant heart and still be willing to give, because there are some things that are outside of our control. And so that's kind of what that character is about. But I think, again, we kind of, I channel characters. So I take my experience, and that's already inside my brain, right? And then I'm creating characters here. And so it just kind of a big mishmash inside my weird brain, I guess. I don't know. I open up doors and let this come out through this character or whatever. I kind of think it's like that, cupboards or something like that.
Yeah, Ellen, I'll just jump on, what you were saying about, channeling. We were actually texting this morning. Ellen and I were on a group text, and I said, I think of Ellen. I always think of her like in Nevada. She's got this beautiful view. She's got all these people over her house. There's like this kind of amazing energy happening, right? And I just think of Ellen like taking all that in, and it just she absorbs it. You can see it when you're talking with her. Even now, you can see it on the screen, but in person, you will have a hard time finding someone who listens better than Ellen Hopkins. you know, more intensely, right? Like she's just, it's a complete, you are so other-centered, right? And that's why you're always rescuing people, you know, and you're a rescuer, right? So like, I mean, just knowing what I know about you, you know, and knowing your books, like it's all autobiography, right? I
Yep.
mean, it is. It's never not autobiography. And I guess just the angels, right? Our editors, right? They know like, yeah, you don't need that. You know, that you got that, you covered that, you got that, you more than got that, right? I had an editor one time say to me, you know, this is back when we printed out the manuscripts. She's like, I don't know how to say this. I'm like, please go ahead. You know, I love the notes. And she's like, she reaches about 2 inches into the stack and she goes like this, you don't need that. I'm like, that's awesome. It starts right in the middle of the scene. That's perfect. I love that, you know? So, I mean, we lean right on our editors to kind of tell us like where that, how to make that autobiography for everyone, for your reader, right? So.
I so often start with something that feels very intimate, but evolves beyond me. And so I have, you know, works in progress, and then how Breath came into its own is I wrote the first draft of Breath in a sobbing 8-day period. And it was, a lot of it was just unearthing all of the memories that I had protected myself from. And then that version was for me. And I knew that for it to be for someone else, it was going to need to change. It was going to need to shift. And then it was about finding or injecting that truth into the character, and then letting her and the characters around her evolve into who they needed to be. And I think a lot of times, you know, we hear, you know, I'm not a good outliner. I've attempted many, many times. And my characters always rebel. They always say that, you know, rightly, that I had no idea what I was talking about. And I think is gathering those bits of truth, those bits of real experience, and then seeing where they take you and being curious. And like you were saying, how Ellen listening to where they need to go, will make it so that their own character. But I think with writing so much of ourselves, no matter what you write, no matter what genre, there is so much of ourselves that are still on the page, even when we feel like we've edited ourselves out. And so I think that it's not worrying about that line of, you know, is this too much me or not? And it's really about, you know, where are they leading me and what do they want to say? And sometimes they surprise you. And I that's my favorite part of the process.
I like when characters just like walk up. That's why I don't outline either. And I'm sure every editor I've ever had will tell you they know. I know. But when I get in trouble is when I try to force my characters into like where I think they ought to go, and they'll be going, I would never do that, you know. And they do. They talk to you. I mean, it's like crazy. They're like, no, woman, I'm not doing that, you know. So, but that's fun. That's the surprise of it. That's the journey of writing. You know, Richard Peck talked about that a lot, about the surprise, and like, why would I want to outline when I don't want to know where it's going till I get there, you know. It's like one of those meandering journeys, and we'll figure it out. And then then the editor can bring us back to like real space or whatever. I do try not to give them too much access, though.
Yeah,
but I've had some practice, you know.
You're at the end of the book, and then you know your character totally does a U-turn. You're like, oh, come on, man! Why did you do that? I have that like you just gave me 400 hours of rewriting. Why did you do that?
It's rude.
I'm cutting you from the book. You're gone.
I hate that that part. Actually. It's like this revision I've been doing forever. It's like, okay, I finally get to I'm toward the end, and I'm like, God, why did I change that at the beginning? Because now I need it to be like the way it was. Now I'm gonna go find the old version and go back to that.
Oh my God. Oh. can I just say Katie's axe has the coolest, what do you call that? Rocky, I'm old. What is that thing? That picture?
Katie, where are you, Katie?
Katie's volunteer, Katie's axe, and she's got the cutest animal. What do you call it? Avatar. Is that an avatar? Or am I wrong?
Oh yes. Is that a squirrel or a groundhog? It's awesome.
It wants a hug, whatever it is.
It wants a hug, and I am hugging back. I'm always down to cuddle cute fuzzy things.
Oh,
I'll have to write this.
Ellen will let you watch your dogs. Go ahead.
Rocky, I read that you are involved with literacy for the incarcerated teens.
No,
That's
that's not
actually
me.
that's my crew.
That's you, Paul?
Yeah.
Oh, Paul, sorry. Well, can you talk?
They,
Can
well,
you talk about that? I'm sorry.
I
I have all
can-
my, see, these are my notes. I
No,
have.
no. I'm just
I pushed
thrilled.
you together.
I'm glad you asked, because anytime that literacy for incarcerated teens can get some airtime is a beautiful thing. I would just say that they are doing the hard work, and they're a wonderful group of people working in the New York City system. So they work in secure facilities and in non-secure facilities, which is more like the kids will go to a halfway house type situation at night. But they get books that it's such a great time now with own voices. You know, it was really hard like 15 years ago. You'd be going into a jail and you know, the kids are like, there's nothing to read. But now it's really gotten so much better, because as we know, it's young folks of color predominantly who get picked up. So I think that literacy for incarcerated teens makes an effort to pair up their readers with books that might click with them. So yeah, check out literacy for incarcerated teens for sure, and donate.
We have about 5 more minutes, so anything you want to add would be greatly appreciated.
You know, what's really fun too is like when you can go in and work with those kids and help them write their own stories.
Mhm.
That stuff's crazy. I mean, and they are good writers. I mean, they might not have all the mechanics, but they have the storytelling like down. And that is like, I love doing that. It's hard now, obviously, because it's the same with school visits, like, I want school visits again, you know, and I want in-person school visits again, because this is fine. You know what I mean? I'm glad to be able to connect with readers somehow, but it's not the same thing as being able to go and wander through their space and understand where they're living, like where they're going to school, what it's like where they go to school. And every school is different, you know, and although inside are kids and they're all as grown up as they all think they are, they're still kids. And so, but to be able to listen to their conversations and understand what's upsetting them, what they're joyous about, what matters to them, that is harder to do on a Zoom than it is like when you're one-on-one with them somewhere or in the same room with them somewhere. So I'm glad we're getting past this time, and I'm really looking forward to getting back into and talking to you guys too, to teachers and librarians as well, you know, but it's the kids I miss, and I love being in their space.
I want to loop back just for a moment to what Paul was talking about, and with literacy and incarcerated youth. And it's just on my mind. Last night I watched the movie, I think it's called They Call Me Monster, but there's this line in it where the mother is sitting across from her son, who is incarcerated, and she was like, I brought you your film books because, you know, you can go to film school after this, and that to remember that you've come from good people, like, you know, your family is behind you, and that this doesn't stop your life, this is just part of it. And I think that it's really important that we recognize that no matter what experience that you're going through, it's really important for us to acknowledge that it is part of your life. It's not the whole of it. And I think that so often, especially when you're young, it really does feel like it could be. And I know that, you know, as a daughter of domestic violence, you know, emerging from that and then creating healthy relationships beyond that takes time and takes a level of self-awareness that you really have to grow into. But you can be a messy human that makes mistakes and still be so valuable and so important, and to know that you're worthy of taking that time and that space. And I think the pandemic, like we were all talking about, the lessons of being present, and to be present not only to the experiences that are happening externally, but the experiences of who we are. And I know that I'm a different, you know, I have like core values that haven't changed, but me 5 years ago, me 10 years ago, me 15 years ago was a different woman. And I am proud of each version of me, even when at the moment I felt like I was the messiest of humans. Like, to know that, no, you know, you saw something and you worked for it, or, you know, whatever that thing is in you that you feel proud of. I think really seek out reasons to be proud of who you are and proud of whatever you want to build in your life, even if you don't quite know what it is yet. And I think that's one thing around realistic and contemporary fiction, is that a lot of times we don't know what that thing is or our thing is, but discovering it is part of the journey, and it's a worthwhile one.
I've mentioned before, but you know, people ask all the time, like, you know, what would you change about your life? You know, and I've been here more than 6 decades. So what would I change about my life? And it's like every single thing I've been through, whether, you know, and some of them have been pretty awful, but every single thing that I've been through has created who I am today and has put me where I am today. So I believe that all those experiences, even as awful as they were valuable. So if we can also bring that and put that out into the world, that, you know, live for now, but the future is what's important, as Rocky was saying. So you can make it through this, and you can come out stronger, actually.
Well, we're going to end this discussion, but I want to thank all of you and all the participants. It was wonderful for me.
Thank you.
And I hope you all have a wonderful life and a great 221. It's going to get better.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, gang. See you all later.
Bye.
Bye.
Rocky, I'm taking Joy and Payne coexist. I'm taking that.
Please.
Right up top.
Yes.
Sure. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.